So there's basically two different ways to play Deceiver, and it changes based on what primary ability you pick. There's two different ones. There's Disguise, which I'm using here, which makes you invisible for a few seconds when you hold the mouse button down, or if you let it go, you transform into a human at random. The other ability is Dominate Mind. This makes it so that when you stare at people, you can then take over direct control of their body. This makes you able to like lure people to area of effects, hold them in place, completely stop their damage, and it also makes you really vulnerable because you stand around and get a shot in the face most of the time. Okay, just to make sure we're on the same page here, the Disguise is the one that sounds like a sexually confident ghost tiger, and the other one is Shroud, which only makes you partially invisible and does dot damage. And that one sounds like a wailing wall of ghost cats. And you need to kind of just use them both together so that you can make Disguise effective, because Disguise can be offensively as well as defensively. You need to be like extra super spooky. Spooky cat noise! Okay, where was I? Yes, Backstab. Backstab is an ability that is dependent on its damage by where an enemy is facing you. If you're able to hit him in the back, it does so much more damage. It does pretty much double damage. And in front, it only does 275 damage, usually 550 from the back. Your movement with Backstab is very important. You immediately have to afterwards hide, roll out of the way of attacks, everything. People usually trying to interrupt you. You have to use this moment to be as ninja as, because that's when you're most vulnerable. You can't do any of your skills for about 3-4 seconds after you use Backstab. If an enemy isn't facing you or goes into a roll, usually you have a brief second to attack before you have to roll out of the way. If they're looking directly at you, you usually want to roll out of the way because the interrupt is coming straight at your face. One of the problems that Backstab has is that you often get stuck on people and objects and differences in elevation, so you have to get used to playing so where you assume that you might miss and know what to do if you do miss, so you can break that lag, and that can usually be enough time for your abilities to be charged back up. You usually don't want to attack people really close because you get stuck on them, or you collide on them and you can't turn, and it messes up your attack. If there's a difference in elevation, that's going to affect your Backstab as well. It only goes in a straight line out in front of you, so if elevation changes too much, it's going to make you miss. A complaint I hear all the time is like, Backstab is too hard to hit. Well, what you're doing is you're using it wrong. You have to imagine Backstab as you being like the Blade Liger, like Hulkamania from hell, where you have a clothesline out on your arm. Your arm is the hitbox, that's it. Nothing in front of you, nothing like by your right breasts, nothing. You have to use your arm, and that's what you're going to hit with people with, and that's what you have to use, and once you understand that, it's much easier. So, one of the things you need to be paying attention to when you are using Disguise is that you're trying to get as close as possible before you use it, because you will run out of time if you are not close enough. Another thing is that you don't always have to use one of your other abilities to escape. You can use a melee attack or run away with a wall climb just so that you can save those attacks and attack from another direction. As a super sneaky deceiver, usually the best thing for you to do is to gank the enemy on the other team, and you make sure you check the player list often so you can know who that is, and you can hit them, get out, and run away. And then you can quickly come back and do another attack with the rest of your team 3v4. Backstab also triggers its attack damage multiplier from the side, but sometimes the best thing you can do is like here I'm trapped and I kind of get stuck out in the open, so I can stop moving and I'm harder to see, and then I can land a fully charged attack rather than try and run away and get shot in the face. And sometimes if you use Disguise incorrectly, or you use it to transverse across open plain terrain, one person might see you, but the other team might not really be paying attention, so you can knock that person out, and since they're not paying attention, they feel like they're protected from their back or whatever, so you can land fully charged hits on them because they're unaware of what you're doing. Okay, now for Infect. Infect is one of my favorite abilities. The way Infect works is you hit somebody with it, does a little decent damage up front, and then it has ticks of 50. and if you get close enough to friendlies, the enemies will then trigger that disease to spread to each other. So you can quickly hit all the teammates if they're up close together, and it does a lot of damage. You can always use it with phase, and that 50 becomes constant ticks of 20 and another tick of 50, which is a great way people get damaged really quickly, and they also don't realize most of the time how much damage they're taking, and it makes them be put in the range where you can get one-hit kills by your teammates. Another great part about Infect is that it's kind of visually blocking, so it makes it harder for people to see. It makes it easier to track enemies because that tick keeps their position updated. It's also a great ability because you can slap someone in the face with it and it tracks their position from there on out, and it also makes it so that you can just leave the battle and you don't even have to be a part of anything anymore. You can completely leave and nothing is going to happen. The full amount of damage can get put out. But usually what I do is I try and get up close and personal, roll around with it a lot, hit my phase and roll around with that as well, so I can try and get the full amount of damage, and I can try and herd them together like little sheeps so that I can do the max damage on all of them. I think this ability works really well with the two abilities that make you partially invisible and invisible, because it simply allows you to enter and exit the battlefield at your will, and it makes it a lot more easy for you to just dominate everywhere and feel like you're everywhere but nowhere. You can use the ability to drain the health out, and then you can come back in, slap a hit down and kill them, or you can slap an area of effective invisibility on them so that they can't see what's going on and they get distracted, and it causes just so much chaos that everyone gets separated, and it's just wonderful. I love it. I don't think it works too well with Dominate Mine though. It's kind of hard to use it. You get so much more like utility out of being able to be invisible. Okay guys, next up is Phase. Phase is an ability that makes you go temporarily partially invisible, and it does an area of effect attack around you where it hits for 20. It goes 20, 20, 20, 20, 20 as long as they're within the area of effect. So you have to get real up close and personal with it. So most of the time what I do is I use my main cloak and I get close, and then I try and hit them with an infect, and that starts doing dot damage to them of that 50, and it throws the bugs, I guess, in their face, and it makes it really hard for you to get seen, and you keep kind of rolling around and stuff, and you land and hit a phase, and then you become invisible, so it makes it even harder to hit you, and then you go and they're in those 50s, and then you're hitting the constant 20s, so it does a lot of damage to a group. But if it's individuals, it doesn't do too much damage, you know, across, because it's not that great at killing people individually in 1v1, but it's great for dealing group damage, where you could damage, say, like 60% of every team member's health if they're up close getting hit by the phase and the infect. So it's great for that. But it can also be used defensively to allow you to get out of the area so that your other two skills can recharge. Those skills are about half the time, maybe even closer to a third than half of phase. Phase takes a really long to charge, so it's kind of a use it or lose it scenario where you have to pop it when you absolutely need it, and if you waste it, you know, you're not going to get it back probably until you die. And that defensive ability is sometimes really useful to get out of the battle so you can recharge your health, but it also does dot damage. What you can do a lot of the time is you can try and space it so that when you're retreating, you're actually attacking through the enemies, and you can deal killing blows, and you can escape as well as finish off the enemies so that you can weaken the whole enemy team for your friends to take care of the rest of them. Another good thing about it is that since you're partially invisible, and if you don't move too much, or if the enemy's facing the wrong direction, what you can do is critically stop in place, and then you can charge up your attack, and then you can hit someone for the full 400 damage. But what that's going to do is it's going to break your cloak. So usually you try and time it so that the end of your cloak happens right as you're about to attack. Being able to time everything, because once you get the timing down, you can almost play Deceiver without even really looking at your timers, because you can sort of feel how fast you have left, so you can use your ability. And kind of in the corner of your eye you see the color change from the abilities, and it shakes a little bit, so you can usually tell and concentrate on what you're doing rather than looking at those numbers. And basically maneuvering everywhere and making sure that you are utilizing yourself to the full is the way that you're going to be successful with this little build here. It's really great. I like it. I mean, everything makes you so that you're really completely offensive, and at the same time you're defensive, and you can get in and out and appear like a ghost fighting people. It's really aggravating when someone who's a good deceiver is using this like build on you. Another really fun thing that I like to do is I like to, when I get up close and personal, and they're not very good at tracking you. You can tell some enemies they're not really great. Is you can use your invisibility, and you can just kind of walk around them in a circle, and they usually can't follow you. You know, a lot of the higher players could probably follow you, but all of the newer people, like, I don't know what it is, they just don't understand the concept of turning their head. So it's pretty effective when you're doing that. But the higher end players, most of the time, you're better off running. With Phase, since you're partially invisible, you want to try and not move too much, or you want to move a lot. You want to break the line of sight, roll around corners, climb over something, come immediately back, or roll back after you rolled in the corner, so that you can get there and you won't be in the same spot really to be tracked, because it's harder to track something when it's moving fast, or it's really hard to track something if it's standing relatively still, because it doesn't make so much contrast and stuff on things, so it's more difficult to track, and there's less times when you can track it. Like, think of like an animation or something, you know, there's more frames in like a little sketch flip book. Like, the more frames, the smoother it is. But if you see like missing frames, where like someone's swinging a bat and you see them raising the bat up, and then you don't see all the frames, like your brain wants to see like the bat lowering and starting to swing out. And if you try and move around and you mess with the brain so it doesn't see as much, you know, as many parts of the frame happening, it's much harder to track someone. So you break that up with line of sight changes and rolls, movements, and then you're just trying to like throw different things like bushes and stuff in the way, and it makes it so much more difficult to track someone. So basically it comes down to trying to break up your pattern as much as possible and being unpredictable, and you want to try and gather as much information from your enemies as possible and what they're going to do, their movements and stuff, because all of that reflects on what you need to do. And the worst thing you could do as a deceiver is use phase or something like this, where you become like triggering your ability and then you're stuck there. And like here, I triggered it too early. I didn't know what was going to go on. I just took a wild guess because I had no information, and I wasted my phase. I have to wait a whole 24 seconds when I could have had my phase here. I could have hit my phase and I could be rolling back over there causing damage, but instead I didn't. So what I'm forced to do is really sneaky maneuvers that keep me alive and out of battle. But you know, right there, that was a complete failure on using phase, but a perfect example of how to properly escape damage and use the terrain and everything to break line of sight. So here I am popping the phase again. I'm wasting it. I'm wasting like 80% of the time of phase. I didn't even get close enough to land an attack, and the whole thing was just wasted. Next up is illusions. Illusions replaces phase. It is not an invisibility ability, it is a ability where it creates two clones that look like you, and they try and act intelligent, and for the most of the time they don't. they're supposed to be there to like try and do the multiple targets thing that like fish and birds do, where they try and overwhelm you with numbers and they try and freak you out to make you react slower because you have multiple targets to aim at and you don't really pick one and it messes with you a bit. But for the most part, I don't really like illusions simply because I'm not invisible at all, and I think the invisibility of phase makes you so much more, you know, useful. There's so many more scenarios that it works in, and it allows you to go around and move in, and I think it just has so much more utility. Illusions right now, since the clones start right next to you and like emerge out of your body, if a person with a area of effect or splash attack hits you, say grenades or whatever, they're going to hit the clones or you, and it's going to deal near full splash damage. So you basically become this giant car-sized object for them. They don't really even have to aim anymore. Also, a lot of the time you try and use your illusions and they pop out the clones, and the clones are full retarded and they run in the wrong direction, or they do something that somebody who's a human and has intelligence would not do. It's usually pretty easy to tell, or you know, people can tell where you're a human or not, because you'll just the way you move, little tiny movements, multiple attacks in a row, different little things are really picked up very easily, and people use them and they just shoot you. You know, even if they just randomly shoot at one of the 3 clones, they have a 33% chance of instantly dealing damage to you. So, I honestly don't think it's that great. I'd rather be invisible and hard to track. This illusions also does not do any damage. So, illusions may attack at enemies, but they don't deal any damage at all. Whereas you're giving up with phase that area of effect damage as well that you had. It's just now gone. Time I use illusions, the clones, they just don't do anything at all helpful. So I think it's really unreliable to use them, to use it as like an opening attack, like on top of a building or something, because I hit it, I run down, like here one of my illusions ran down, I don't know where the other one went, it went like backwards off the building somewhere, I think. So you know, that automatically reduces my effectiveness by 1/3. So it's not great. You know, it might work better if these things get more intelligent, but they're not. Like right there, you saw the clone come in. He looked like he was doing a good job. He distracted them at first, but then as soon as he got close, he like attacked, and then his entire body to face the wrong direction. And a level 40 would never do that. Like, they know I'm level 40. Hit tab and they can look and see I'm level 40, and they know I'm not retarded, and that's not me. You know, and that might be a thing that's less of a problem if you're lower level, but the higher levels, they expect you not to be retarded. So, no, I really don't like it. Just don't. It's so difficult to use. It just feels like I'm wasting my ability to do stuff. Most of the time people just shoot. Or like that, the clones double up, and more often than not, it's really difficult for you to double up because you don't know where the clones are going, the clones know where they're going. So, you know, they have like a limited artificial intelligence that makes decisions, I guess, that combines where like both of those 2 clones make the same decision, whereas you can't. So it automatically gives you away that those are the clones and not you. So people shoot you right in the face. I've seen like some success come out of it where you turn corners and things, or kind of leap out of the way in and out. That makes it much more confusing because that limits the exposure of you and the clones, so that people don't have as much time to watch the clones and observe their behavior, because it's just more successful without that. Like, the longer they have to watch your clones and study them, the worse off you're gonna be. Like here, I tried to hit my clones. My clones didn't even come. They ran way backwards somewhere. And they were not even a part of the battle, and I just basically wasted my ability. Like here, I'm getting up on this prophet. I could hit him with an infect or something, but I don't have it. I have my illusions. If I had phase, I could have phased it out right there and did the dot damage on him. I hit my illusions. My illusions just ran away. Didn't go anywhere helpful, so I wasted that ability. I could have done the phase damage, but no. So we just wasted it. This happens all the time. It's just not helpful. It's terrible. I don't see how it's helpful, because you need predictability to give that away and give your enemies that advantage. It just seems stupid. I mean, why would I ever want... See, I could hit my phase right there. I could be going tick, 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 tick. But I had to stay in the fray and get hit. But the illusions was successful there, because it was like I jammed it down his throat and hit the button, and that fills his screen with illusions, and he can't see because of all the deceivers. So that is somewhat limited success, but most of the time it's not. Like on the edge here, it might be kind of successful because people aren't really able to see much because they're distracted. They're distracted and it can offer a quick dodge away, so people think you dodge away and you didn't. But you know, it's so like random and conditional. I just don't like it. I mean, I never see anybody run illusions. Never. It's just so difficult to use. And I know most of this has been like complaining, but I'm sorry for that. But like, it's just currently the way it is. I don't think illusions has any real use in comparison to the other abilities, because it just doesn't. There's not much there. Every single time I've gone there like hundreds of times, I've tried to break in with the ability, starting, ending with it, cramming it in people's faces all the time. People just see right through it, and it's not great. It's terrible. It's just bad. It's just outclassed by phase. I just like, look, you can see it. Like, it's not successful. It doesn't deal damage. I have to roll around, and I can dodge bullets and fire, so that way they can waste bullets and they're not hitting me, so that I can have a chance to attack and they won't be grinding me for as long. Because here, look, like phase. Look at this. Look at all this damage. I probably did like 600 damage just in phase alone. Just 20, 20, 20, 20 on all 3-4 people. Like, I can almost take the whole team out by myself. I mean, imagine if I had to hit an infect on top of this. They would all... So lastly, Dominate Mind. Dominate Mind, like I was saying before, is a replacement skill for Disguise. You lose your ability to become completely invisible for the ability to control other characters. It has a limited range. It has kind of really buggy, I guess, like, ability to see people. Like, you can physically see people really well, and it still won't work. And it resets, and it's really annoying. So what you have to do with it really is just kind of stand out in the open and hope nobody sees you. You have to try and be spooky with it. And it's very frustrating to try and use successfully. And if your Dominate Mind gets cancelled by whatever reason, you being damaged too much, the enemy damaging you, your friends damaging them and knocking them out of the Dominate Mind because it only can hold it for so long, then you often fall off the building that you're standing on because the interrupt is not expected to happen by you, and you throw yourself off whatever you're doing and usually into enemy fire. It's not a good thing. I don't think it's really a great skill, simply because you usually have to be pretty far away, so it cuts on the chain ability of a lot of your skills if you're using disguise. It also is difficult, incredibly difficult to use in a pub, because most often, you know, it grabs the wrong people, it just sucks in general, people attack the people that you're trying to grab, they steal and knock them away, everything bad happens, you know, so it can be used to set up some really nice combos and stuff in, I think, a TeamSpeak or Mumble or something scenario, but just publicly, everything is just terrible. You can kind of grab people up close like that sometimes, but you know, they have a tendency to interrupt you or, you know, just push you around, and it breaks the dominate mind, so it's not so great. You can use it to throw people off objects. What else? It can kind of be used to interrupt other people. That's really nice as well, so it can mitigate some of the damage. Here's a nice combo where he brought the character up to me. I can damage him a little bit, and this guy should have done a charge attack and then landed a 400 and then swiped him, but you know, whatever. See, it doesn't really help. I mean, if you have pubs, they don't really know what you're doing, you don't know what they're doing, it's just all terrible. Let's see. Here we go. This is where I'm showing you, like, I mitigate the damage. I bring that guy off of the reaver so he won't deal that huge amount of damage to him. Here I am trying to grab someone again, and it doesn't work. I get yanked off because he deals too much damage to that guy. Throws me off. The other abilities are kind of not so helpful, so I can't really do much. You know, I can't get in there. I have to just kind of run in there, where I think that cuts off a lot of the usefulness. Like, I can't hit my phase because I have to basically run in uncloaked or anything. And like there, that guy ran into me and broke my dominant mind by dragging everyone else over to me and damaging me. Here I am, like I said, I had to run in with my shroud, and if I get interrupted like that, there's nothing I can do. I don't have my shroud like I would normally if I was wearing disguise, where I can hit my shroud and run away. I just stand out there in the open, and there you saw archers. The archers can easily nail you instantaneously. Again, real quick, like right here, when people on your team like deal too much damage, they interrupt you, and I wanted to drag that guy down, like out of range and stuff, but no. Your dominant mind takes about 2-3 seconds of tracking, and that archer can just hit you full force, 400 health. For some unknown reason, my teammate, who's a tyrant, hit his ignore pain, and so that ruined my attack. It ruined his defense, and it ruined everything. What should have been a result in both of us being piled, and it just ruined everything by them not, for them being pub and not understanding how it works. A lot of the time I find I could be in scenarios where I could be a king, but instead I'm not. I'm over here trying to get a pull. Here I grinded it along, and then I got fall damage to increase the damage, but also standing there I took like a good 500 damage or so. So it's not that great. Maybe it'd be a better ability if it was partially invisible with the hands going. But any real team I've noticed is coordinated easily takes you apart, especially if they're playing together with microphones. You know, not the in-game microphones because they're pretty bad right now, but like Mumble or something, they can be like, he's over there, I'm dominated. and they just like look up and then they shoot. And you won't even notice it half the time until you're actually taking damage. Then you have to click the button, and then you get damaged even more, and it's not great. You can also use it to drag into other people into the AoEs of their own, and they'll take damage from those. Like the firewall is really good with that. For the most part, a lot of the scenarios I just find where if I had my disguise, I'd be so much better off. So here, look, I got interrupted by the bomb, and I have to wait a whole 20 seconds before I get my main skill back. I finally got my dominant mind back, but it's not gonna help me much. I mean, if anybody sees me at this point trying to charge it, I need instantaneously with such low health. Like this, I was successful at luring him away, but are my teammates paying attention and getting him? No. So, you know, that would have probably been really successful if it wasn't a pub and we had mics, but, you know, nothing happened. I just dragged him away and that was it. I wasted, you know, my 20 seconds and nothing happened really. He took like 100 damage. Didn't really do much damage. And there I screwed up that guy's attack because I didn't know he was coming. I didn't know he was going to try and get the guy. By the mic, you know, I could have been like, I'm grabbing the hunter up top. And then he wouldn't have flown there. And, you know, that wouldn't have been ruined. So, this thing just ruins everything in both ways in pub. More often than it helps. So, a lot of this comes down to maneuvering a lot so that they don't have a good sense of where you are, and they're always going to have to look around for you. So, like once you've been spotted, whether or not you've landed a hit, you just need to relocate with dominant mind, because you're just not going to get anything off. So you need those 3-4 seconds. So like what I'm doing here is I'm going back further of the level. So even though they're not really over here, I can still grab them and pull them. And at least there's a little bit more hope because they're going to have you to further distance. But at the same time, like I was saying before, I'm so far away now, my other abilities don't really come into play. So I kind of have to choose in between both or alternating. And I don't think it's that great of a build. You can have so much more DPS that's helpful with disguise. So if you like this video, be sure to check out my other hunter video where I play as the hunter and teach you how to be a cool hunter dude. Yeah, cowbell. I have a cowbell. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. This video is so long. Oh my god. Anyways, click on this thing somewhere. I'll put it somewhere. Or my guys.